Sweat beads on Officer Brett Carver's forehead as Judge Evelyn Brooks's gavel cracks the humid Atlanta courtroom air. His smug grin fades, replaced by dread. He dragged in Kiara Winston, a black woman he pegged as an easy target, only to learn, 5 minutes into the hearing, she's the USAO chief federal prosecutor. Whispers erupt. His career teeters. What began as a routine stop spiraled into a nightmare promising ruin and a reckoning for a broken system. How deep will this fallout cut? Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from, and if you stand for justice, hit like and subscribe for more stories that expose the truth. The sun dips low over Atlanta, painting the sky a bruised orange as heat shimmers off the congested highway, stretching through the city's heart. Kiara Winston grips the wheel of her sleek black SUV, the hum of jazz spilling from the speakers, a soft counterpoint to the snarl of traffic around her. At 42, she carries herself with the quiet steel of someone who's clawed her way to the top, her dark eyes sharp behind the windshield. She's just left a marathon day at the federal courthouse, her mind still tangled in the threads of a drug cartel case she's been dismantling piece by bloody piece. Her suit jacket lies folded on the passenger seat, a stack of legal briefs beside it, her phone buzzing with unanswered emails. She exhales, letting the music smooth the edges of her exhaustion, a ritual she's kept since her law school days when she'd study until her eyes burned. A sudden wail pierces the air, sharp and insistent, slicing through Nina Simone's velvet voice. Kiara's brow furrows, her gaze flicking to the rearview mirror. A police cruiser barrels up behind her, red and blue lights flashing like a predator's eyes in the fading daylight. Confusion prickles her skin. She's been driving steady well under the speed limit, boxed in by the rush-hour crawl. She signals, easing the SUV to the shoulder, gravel crunching under the tires as she kills the engine. Her hands stay firm on the wheel, a deliberate choice born from years of witnessing traffic stops turn deadly in courtrooms and case files. She knows the drill, knows how fast things can spiral when you're black and behind the wheel. The cruiser, door swings open, and Officer Brett Carver steps out, his silhouette cutting a harsh line against the dusk. His boots hit the pavement with a loud, deliberate click, each step radiating authority he wears like armor. He's in his late 30s, broad-shouldered, with a buzzed head and a jaw clenched tight enough to crack walnuts. His uniform is crisp, badge glinting under the dying sun, but his eyes carry a cold glint, a flicker of something mean and restless. He approaches her window, one hand resting on his holster, the other tapping his thigh like he's itching for a fight. Kiara lowers the glass, the humid air rushing in, thick with the scent of exhaust and asphalt. She keeps her movements slow, precise, her face a mask of calm despite the unease coiling in her gut. License and registration, Carver barks, his voice rough and clipped, no trace of courtesy. His name tag catches the light. Tyler, scratched into the metal, though he'll soon wish she never saw it. His eyes narrow, raking over her with suspicion, lingering on her face, then darting to the brief stacked beside her. He leans closer, close enough she can smell the stale coffee on his breath, his posture screaming he's already made up his mind about her. Kiara meets his stare, offering a polite smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "Good afternoon, officer. May I ask what this is about?" Her tone is even, measured, a lawyer's voice honed to cut through chaos without breaking. Carver ignores her, snatching the documents she slides through the window. His lips twitch into a sneer as he scans her license, his fingers tightening around the edges. "Do you know how fast you were going?" he asks, voice thick with condescension, like he's talking to a child caught stealing. Kiara blinks. Caught? Off guard, her mind replaying the last 10 minutes. "I was well within the speed limit. Is there something else I need to be aware of?" She keeps her words steady, but a flicker of irritation seeps through, a spark Carver catches like dry. "Tender, you seem awfully defensive for someone getting pulled over," he snaps, stepping back, his eyes hardening into slits. He tosses her license onto his palm, weighing it like evidence of a crime she hasn't committed. Kiara feels a chill crawl up her spine, the kind she's felt in depositions when a witness starts lying through their teeth. "I'm simply trying to understand the nature of the stop," she says, her voice still calm though her pulse ticks faster. She's seen this play out in too many cases, the script of power and prejudice unfolding before her eyes. Carver scoffs, a harsh sound that grates against the hum of passing cars. Step out of the car. Her breath catches, a sharp intake she masks with a slow exhale. She knows the law, knows her rights, but she also knows the reality. Compliance can be the thin line between walking away and not walking at all. She's defended clients who didn't get that chance, their stories ending in blood on asphalt or a cell block wall. The irony stings, bitter and cold, as she unbuckles her seatbelt, her fingers steady despite the storm brewing inside. She steps out, her heels clicking against the pavement, her posture straight, a quiet grace that belies the fury simmering beneath her skin. Carver towers over her, his 6-foot frame casting a shadow across her 5'7" stature. His aggression radiates, unprovoked and unnecessary, his hands flexing like he's ready to strike. "Hands where I can see them," he shouts, loud enough to turn heads in the slowing traffic nearby. Kiara notices the glances, drivers craning their necks, some curious, others wary, but none stop, none intervene. She raises her hands, palms open, her eyes locking onto his with a steadiness that seems to rattle him. "Officer, I've cooperated. Fully. Can you explain why I've been asked to step out?" "You're obstructing justice," he snarls, a glint of satisfaction flashing in his eyes as he closes the distance between them. "And now you're resisting a lawful stop." Her jaw tightens, the absurdity of his words slamming into her like a fist. She's spent her career dismantling false charges like these, but now she's the one caught in the net. "I'm not resisting anything. I've complied with all your instructions," she says, her voice low, firm, a thread of steel running through it. Carver smirks, a cruel twist of his lips that makes her stomach churn. "That's not what it looks like to me." Without warning, he grabs her arm, his grip bruising as he yanks it behind her back. Pain flares up her shoulder, a hot spike she bites down on, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a gasp. The cold bite of handcuffs snaps around her wrists, the metal digging into her skin, tight enough to leave marks she'll feel for days. She inhales sharply, swallowing the wave of anger threatening to spill over. Carver's breath is hot against her ear as he mutters, "Should have kept your mouth shut, girl." The slur hangs in the air, unspoken but loud in his tone, a venom she's heard echoed in courtrooms and case files too many times. He shoves her toward the cruiser, her knees nearly buckling under the force. She steadies herself, her mind racing, cataloguing every second of this encounter. His badge number burns into her memory, 4729, a detail she'll wield like a blade later. The backseat door creaks open, and he pushes her inside, her shoulder slamming against the vinyl seat. She rights herself, her cuffed hands awkward behind her, her gaze fixed on the back of his head as he slides into the driver's seat. He chuckles, a low, ugly sound muttering under his breath. "Think you're smart, huh? We'll see about that." The cruiser lurches forward, merging into traffic, the city blurring past the grimy windows. Kiara's chest tightens, not from fear, but from a fury she's trained herself to leash. She's faced down killers, corrupt CEOs, and cartel lieutenants, but this feels different, raw and personal. Her skin prickles where his hands gripped her, the cuffs chafing her wrists, a physical reminder of the power he thinks he holds. She closes her eyes for a moment, centering herself, the jazz still echoing faintly in her mind. Carver's radio crackles, his voice smug as he calls it in. "Got one resisting over here, adding obstruction and non-compliance." The lie rolls off, his tongue effortlessly, a script he's played before, one she's dissected in countless trials. She opens her eyes, staring at the back of his neck, her mind already shifting gears. She knows the law better than he ever will, knows how to turn his arrogance into a noose. This isn't just a stop anymore, it's a spark, one that'll ignite, a fire she'll stoke until it burns him down. The highway stretches ahead, the Atlanta skyline looming closer, its lights flickering like a promise or a threat. Kiara sits silent, her calm a weapon, her memory a vault. She doesn't argue, doesn't plead, just watches, waits. Carver thinks he's won, thinks he's broken her, but he's wrong. He's just handed her the match, and she's ready to light it. The cruiser rumbles on, carrying them toward a reckoning neither can yet see, a collision of power and prejudice that'll shake the city to its core. The Atlanta courthouse squats under a humid night sky, its brick facade glowing faintly under sodium streetlights. Inside, the air buzzes with the restless hum of a small crowd, clerks shuffling papers, and attorneys whispering in tight knots. The room smells of polished wood and stale coffee, a cramped space with peeling paint on the walls, and a ceiling fan creaking lazily overhead. Officer Brett Carver strides through the heavy wooden doors, his boots thudding against the scuffed linoleum, dragging Kiara Winston behind him like a trophy he's eager to display. Her wrists chafe under the cuffs, red marks blooming where the metal bites, but her face remains a fortress of calm, her dark eyes scanning the room with a predator's focus. She's still in her work clothes, a navy blazer wrinkled from the pie, cruiser's back seat, her heels clicking a steady rhythm that echoes louder than Carver's bravado. He shoves her toward the defendant's table, his grip bruising her arm one last time before he lets go. She steadies herself, standing tall, her 5'7" frame radiating a quiet defiance that makes the room feel smaller. Carver's chest puffs out, his broad shoulders squared like he's about to take a victory lap. He's in his element. Here, the courthouse, a stage where he's played this scene too many times. Cuff a suspect, spin a story, walk away clean. His buzzed head gleams under the fluorescent lights, sweat beading at his temples, but his smirk holds firm. He thinks he's got this in the bag, thinks Kiara's just another black face he can bury under lies and paperwork. Judge Evelyn Brooks presides from the bench, a 55-year-old woman with a stern jaw and eyes like polished steel. Her silver-streaked hair is pulled into a tight bun, her black robe a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding below. She's known in Atlanta's legal circles for cutting through nonsense with a surgeon's precision, her reputation built on decades of rulings that leave no room for games. She adjusts her glasses, peering down at the scene with a flicker of curiosity, her fingers tapping a stack of papers as Carver launches into his tale. "Resisting arrest and obstruction of justice, Your Honor," he declares, his voice booming, with self-assurance, loud enough to ripple through the onlookers. He gestures at Kiara like she's Exhibit A, his sneer widening. Caught her red-handed, mouthing off, refusing to comply. Kiara stands silent, her lips pressed into a thin line, letting him talk. Her gaze locks onto Judge Brooks, a steady beam that doesn't waver even as Carver piles on the accusations. He paints her as a wild card, a threat, his words dripping with exaggeration. She lunged at him, cursed him out, obstructed his every move. The crowd murmurs, some nodding along, conditioned to buy the cop's story without question. Others shift uncomfortably, catching the mismatch between Carver's bluster and Kiara's poised stillness. She's a statue carved from resolve, her hands cuffed behind her, but her presence fills the room, a quiet storm brewing under her skin. 5 minutes tick by, the clock above the bench clicking louder than it should in the tense air. Carver's wrapping up, smirking like he's already won, when Kiara finally speaks. "Your Honor, may I address the court?" Her voice cuts through the noise, clear and firm, carrying the weight of someone who's commanded rooms bigger than this. Carver snorts, rolling his eyes, but Judge Brooks raises a hand, silencing him. "Go ahead," she says, her tone measured, her sharp eyes narrowing slightly as she studies Kiara. The room leans in, the murmurs dying down, every ear straining to hear what comes next. "I'm Kiara Winston," she begins, her words deliberate, each syllable landing like a stone in still water. "Chief Federal Prosecutor for the Northern District of Georgia." A gasp ripples through the crowd, a sharp intake of breath that sucks the air from the room. Carver's smirk freezes, his face draining of color, turning ashen under the harsh lights. His mouth opens then closes, a fish floundering on dry land. Judge Brooks leans forward, her glasses slipping down her nose as she peers at Kiara, a flicker of recognition sparking in her gaze. "Excuse me?" she says, her voice low but edged with steel, daring anyone to interrupt. Carver recovers, his bravado cracking, but not gone. "She's lying, Your Honor. She's making it up to dodge the charges." His voice pitches higher, desperation creeping in, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. Kiara doesn't flinch, her calm unshaken. "I have identification in my vehicle if the court will allow it to be retrieved," she says, her tone cool, almost daring him to dig deeper. Judge Brooks nods curtly, motioning to a bailiff who scurries out to the impounded SUV parked in the courthouse lot. The room holds its breath, the tension thick enough to choke on, every eye darting between Kiara and Carver. The bailiff returns, clutching Kiara's federal ID, the seal of the U.S. Attorney's office glinting under the lights. He hands it to the judge, who scans it, her lips pressing into a tight line. She holds it up, the room erupting in whispers as the truth sinks in. "Officer Carver," she says, her voice sharp enough to slice glass, "are you telling me you arrested the chief federal prosecutor without cause?" Carver stammers, his words tripping over each other. I didn't know, Your Honor. She didn't say—" His excuse evaporates under her glare, a flimsy shield against the storm he's unleashed. Judge Brooks slams her gavel, the crack echoing like a gunshot. "Cuffs off now," she snaps, and the bailiff moves to unlock Kiara's wrists. The metal clinks as it falls away, her hands free, red marks stark against her skin. She rubs them briefly, her gaze never leaving Carver, who's shrinking under the weight of his mistake. "Officer Carver, you're suspended effective immediately, pending a full investigation," Brooks declares, her tone final, her eyes boring into him. "This court will not tolerate reckless abuse of power." The crowd buzzes, some cheering, others gaping as Carver's world crumbles in real time. Kiara steps back, smoothing her blazer, her expression unreadable, but her eyes fierce. She's free, the cuffs gone, the judges ruling a small victory ringing in her ears. She nods to Brooks, a silent acknowledgement, then turns to leave, her heels clicking a steady beat as she heads for the doors. Carver watches her go, his face a mask of shock and fury, his fists trembling at his sides. He mutters something under his breath, too low for the court to hear, but the venom in his stare screams louder than words. She pushes through the doors, the humid night air hitting her like a wave, the Atlanta skyline sprawling before her, its lights flickering in the distance. Her chest swells with a fleeting relief, the weight of the cuffs replaced by a flicker of triumph. She's out, cleared, her title a shield that turned Carver's game upside down. But as she steps onto the courthouse steps, his glare burns into her memory, a promise of something darker lurking beneath his defeat. She's won this round, or so she thinks, her mind already shifting to the cartel case waiting on her desk. The victory feels solid, a brick she can stand on, but it's brittle, fragile in ways she can't yet see. Carver's suspension is a slap, not a knockout, and the system he's part of doesn't bend so easily. She takes a deep breath, the city's pulse thrumming around her, unaware that this moment is just the first domino in a chain that'll test every ounce of her strength. What did Carver mutter as she walked away? Comment with number 1 if you think his arrogance deserves a reckoning, and don't forget to like and subscribe for the next twist in Kiara's fight. Has justice really been served? Or is this just the calm before a storm Kiara can't predict? What happens when a cop like Carver refuses to stay down? Picture this: a man humiliated, a badge tarnished, and a grudge festering. Could his next move shatter Kiara's world even more? Drop your thoughts below, and let's see where this roller coaster takes us. The Atlanta police precinct hums with a restless edge as night cloaks the city, its concrete walls stained with years of grime and neglect. Inside, the air is thick with cigarette smoke and the sharp tang of sweat, the fluorescent lights flickering overhead like a heartbeat on the fritz. Officer Brett Carver storms through the bullpen, his boots slamming the tiled floor, his broad frame cutting a path through the late-shift chaos. His face is a storm cloud, pale with fury, his buzzed head glistening with sweat from the humid night outside. Suspension papers crumple in his fist, the ink still fresh from Judge Brooks's ruling, each word a fresh cut to his pride. He's a volcano ready to blow, and the precinct is his lava field. Desks clutter the room, piled with coffee-stained reports and flickering computer screens, officers hunched over them in a haze of exhaustion, but heads lift as Carver barrels. In his presence a thunderclap that demands attention. He doesn't stop until he reaches the corner office, its glass walls smudged with fingerprints, the blinds half drawn to shield the man inside. Captain Victor Grayson sits behind a battered metal desk, a hulking figure at 50, his barrel chest straining his uniform. His hair is a steel grey crew cut, his face carved with deep lines from decades of barking orders and burying complaints. His meaty hands rest on a stack of files, but his cold blue eyes lock onto Carver as the door bangs open, a predator sizing up his prey. "She's a damn prosecutor," Carver spits, slamming the papers onto Grayson's desk, the thud echoing in the cramped space. His voice trembles with rage, his fists clenching as he paces like a caged animal. "Chief federal prosecutor, and they let her walk. Suspended me like I'm the criminal." Grayson leans back, his chair creaking under his weight, his lips curling into a sneer that doesn't reach his eyes. He's heard the rumors already, the courthouse gossip filtering through the precinct like wildfire. Kiara Winston, a black woman with a title that makes his blood boil, turned Carver's routine power play into a public gut punch. "Calm down, Brett," Grayson rumbles, his voice low and gravelly, a tone that's silenced rookies and broken. Tougher men than Carver. He steeples his fingers, his gaze drifting to the window where Atlanta's skyline glints faintly through the smog. "You screwed up, but we're not done. She thinks she's untouchable? We'll show her what happens when you cross us." His words drip with venom, a promise carved from years of shielding his crew from consequences. He's a kingpin in this precinct, a man who's crushed complaints with a wink and a file shredder, his influence stretching from street cops to City Hall. Carver stops pacing, his breath ragged, his eyes lighting with a desperate hope. "What's the play, Cap?" Grayson's sneer widens and he leans forward, elbows on the desk, his bulk casting a shadow across the crumpled suspension notice. "We hit her where it hurts. She's got a big shot title. We'll make sure nobody trusts it." He jerks his head toward a corner desk where Officer Lena Hayes, a wiry 30-something with a knack for tech, taps away at a keyboard. "Lena's already on it. Pulled your body cam footage. We're spinning it our way." Hayes glances up, her sharp features lit by the screen's glow, her fingers pausing mid-type. "Got it edited, boss. Cut out the cuffs, spliced in some old clips of a suspect swinging at you. Looks like she attacked first. Uploading it now." Her voice is flat, mechanical, a soldier following orders she's executed too many times. Grayson nods, satisfaction flickering in his eyes. "Good. Push it to every site that'll take it. Twitter, YouTube, the works. Let's see how her fancy office likes a viral beatdown." Carver's lips twitch into a grin, a flicker of his old swagger returning. "She'll crash and burn, Cap. They'll eat her alive." Grayson grunts, standing to his full 6'3" height, towering over Carver as he claps a heavy hand on his shoulder. "Damn right. Nobody humiliates my boys and walks away clean. This is just the start." The room buzzes with a new energy, officers exchanging glances, some smirking, others nodding. They're a pack now, rallied behind Grayson's war cry, ready to tear Kiara down, brick by brick. Miles away, Kiara sits in her upscale condo, the Atlanta skyline sprawling beyond her floor-to-ceiling windows. The space is sleek, modern, with hardwood floors and leather furniture, a sanctuary she's built from years of relentless work. She's shed her blazer, her silk blouse clinging to her skin as she pours a glass of red wine, the liquid catching the soft light of a lamp. Her wrists still ache, faint red lines circling them, a quiet reminder of Carver's cuffs. She sinks into a chair, her phone resting on the glass coffee table, the cartel case files spread out before her. The courtroom wind lingers in her mind. A small spark of triumph she clings to, believing the worst is behind her. The phone buzzes, a sharp vibration that jolts her from her thoughts. She picks it up, frowning at the flood of notifications lighting. The screen. Twitter mentions, texts, emails, all piling up like debris after a storm. Her thumb hovers, then taps a link from an unknown number. A video loads, grainy at first, then sharpening into a nightmare. It's her, or so it seems, lunging at Carver on that highway shoulder, her face twisted in rage as he stumbles back. The footage cuts jerky and spliced, but the effect is brutal. She looks feral, unhinged, a far cry from the poised woman who walked out of the courthouse. Her breath catches, the wine glass trembling in her hand as the view count ticks upward, already in the thousands. Comments scroll beneath it, a torrent of hate crashing over her. Corrupt prosecutor attacks cop. Typical thug in a suit. Jail her now. Slurs pepper the thread, raw and vicious, each one a knife twisting in her gut. Her phone Buzzes again, a text from her sister, Nia. "What's this video? People are losing it!" Kiara's heart pounds, her mind racing to piece it together. This isn't real, can't be real, but the damage is already spreading. A wildfire she can't outrun. She sets the glass down, untouched, her hands shaking as she replays the clip. The edits are sloppy if you know what to look for. The lighting, off, her movements unnatural, but the mob online doesn't care. They see a black woman in power, and Grayson's lie fits the story they're hungry to believe. Her doorbell buzzes, sharp and insistent, and she freezes, dread pooling in her stomach. Through the peephole she sees a stranger, a man in a hoodie, his face shadowed, pacing her porch. Her phone lights up again, a voicemail this time, the voice distorted but clear. "Quit your job or you're dead." She steps back, her breath shallow, the condo's walls closing in. The video's gone viral now, retweets climbing into the tens of thousands, the hate metastasizing with every share. Her email inbox floods with threats, some anonymous, others signed with glee, all laced with the same racist venom. "Know your place," one reads, the words searing into her brain. She grabs her laptop, pulling up the original body cam request. She'd filed with Internal Affairs, her fingers trembling as she types a follow-up. This is Carver's doing, she knows it, but Grayson's shadow looms larger, a puppet master pulling strings she can't yet see. The night deepens, the city's hum a distant roar beyond her windows. Kiara paces, her heels off now, bare feet. Silent on the hardwood, the courtroom felt like a win, a clean break, but this is a sucker punch she didn't see coming. Her reputation, her shield, is cracking under the weight of lies she can't fight alone. She stops, staring at the skyline, her reflection ghostly in the glass. Grayson's voice echoes in her mind, imagined but real. "We'll teach her a lesson." She clenches her fists, nails digging into her palms, the pain grounding her. This isn't just revenge, it's war. Carver's suspension was a spark, and Grayson's lit the fuse, turning her life into a battlefield she didn't choose. The threats pile up, each one a brick in a wall closing her in, but she's not broken yet. She sits, opens her laptop again and starts drafting a response, her mind shifting into the lawyer she is, precise, relentless, unbreakable. The video's a lie, but the truth is her weapon, and she'll wield it until they choke on it. The fight's just begun, and she's not running. Dawn creeps over Atlanta, painting Kiara Winston's upscale condo in soft pinks and golds, a fragile calm against the storm brewing inside her. The hardwood floors gleam under the early light, reflecting the sleek lines of her leather furniture, but the air feels heavy, tainted by the hate flooding her phone. She stands by the window, her silk blouse wrinkled from a sleepless night, her wrists still marked with faint red lines from Carver's cuffs. The viral video Grayson's crew unleashed plays on a loop in her mind, its lies clawing at her reputation. She grips a mug of coffee, the steam curling upward untouched as she stares at the skyline, its towers mocking her with their stillness. Her laptop sits open on the glass coffee table, Internal Affairs email glowing on the screen. "We've received your complaint regarding Officer Brett Carver. Investigation expedited due to judicial support. Judge Evelyn Brooks' name is CC'd, her stern backing a lifeline Kiara clings to." She exhales, a flicker of hope sparking in her chest. Suspension wasn't enough. She wants Carver's badge shredded, his career ash. She types a reply, her fingers steady despite the exhaustion tugging at her eyes, detailing the video's edits, the threats, the stranger at her door. She hits send, the whoosh of the email a small victory, a brick laid on the path to justice. The condo's silence wraps around her, broken only by the faint hum of the city waking beyond the walls. She sets the mug down, pacing to the kitchen, her bare feet silent on the cool floor. Her phone buzzes again, Nia's name flashing. "You. Okay, that video's everywhere." Kiara texts back, holding up IAs on it. She feels the tide shifting, the system she's fought within starting to bend her way. She grabs her briefcase, flipping through the cartel case files, determined to reclaim her day. The courtroom win, IA's promise, Brooks's support. Their armor, and she's ready to wield them. She showers, the hot water washing away the night's grime, her mind sharpening with every drop. Dressed in a crisp grey suit, she heads to her office downtown, the 30-minute drive a blur of resolve. The federal building looms ahead, its glass facade catching the morning sun, a beacon of order she's built her life around. She parks, steps out and strides through the lobby, her heels clicking a rhythm of purpose. Her team greets her with nods, their eyes flickering with concern, but their trust unshaken. She briefs them on the cartel case, her voice steady, the room a fortress. Against the chaos outside, for a moment she believes she's back in control, the video a storm she'll weather. That illusion shatters at 6:32 a.m. A deafening crash rips through the condo's quiet, glass exploding inward as a brick smashes through her living room window. She's not there to hear it, but the security app on her phone blares an alert. The live feed showing the wreckage, shards glittering on the hardwood, a note taped to the brick, flapping in the breeze. She pulls over on Peachtree Street, her heart slamming against her ribs as she taps the footage. The note's scrawl is stark, "Quit or die." Her breath catches, the threat sinking claws into her gut, but she forces herself calm, dialing the police. The dispatcher's voice is clipped, bored, promising a patrol car when available. Kiara knows that tone, knows it means nothing's coming. She hangs up, her jaw tight, and calls her security company instead, demanding an immediate sweep. She drives home, the city blurring past, her mind racing. Grayson's crew, she's sure of it, their fingerprints all over this escalation. The video wasn't enough. They want her broken, scared, gone. She pulls into her driveway, the condo's front window a gaping wound, neighbors peeking from curtains but offering no help. The security tech arrives, a wiry man in his 20s, his toolbox clanking as he surveys the damage. "Looks targeted," he mutters, snapping photos, his voice tinged with unease. Kiara nods, her arms crossed, her gaze fixed on the note now bagged in plastic. She calls IA again, forwarding the footage, her voice steel as she demands action. "This is retaliation. Carver's crew, do your job." The agent on the line stammers, promising escalation, and she hangs up, her hope flickering but holding. She thinks she's got them cornered, the evidence stacking in her favor. She heads back to the office, determined to push through, her team rallying around her as she briefs them again. The day drags, her phone silent from IA, the condo breach a shadow over her focus. She leaves at 6, the sun dipping low, the drive, home a tense vigil. She's pulling into her parking garage when her phone pings, a text from an unknown number. "Check your office." Dread coils in her stomach, but she brushes it off, exhaustion dulling her instincts. She steps inside, the condo quiet, the window boarded up by the tech. She locks the door, pours a glass of wine and collapses onto the couch, believing the worst is over for now. At 8:47 p.m., her office downtown erupts in chaos. She doesn't hear it, doesn't see it, but the security feed lights, her phone again, this time with fire. Vandals, faces masked, smash through the federal building's side door, their movements swift, coordinated. They douse her office with gasoline, the flames licking up case files, her desk, the walls. Racial slurs bleed across the plaster in red spray paint. "Go back where you came from," black bitch jagged letters glowing in the blaze. The fire alarm wails, sprinklers kicking in too late, the damage done. Her phone buzzes, the feed, live, and she bolts upright, wine spilling across the hardwood. Her heart hammers as she watches the inferno consume her sanctuary, years of work curling into ash. A new text pings. Grayson sends regards. Her breath hitches, the name a sledgehammer to her chest. She dials 911, her voice shaking but firm, reporting the arson. But the dispatcher's apathy echoes the morning's call. She slams the phone down, pacing, her mind a whirlwind of fury and fear. The condo breach was a warning. This is war, a gut punch that rips her sense of safety apart. She grabs her laptop, pulling up the precinct's public site. Grayson's photo. Staring back, Captain Victor Grayson, a hulking figure with cold eyes. She knows him now, knows his crew's behind this. Carver just a pawn in his game. The video, the brick, the fire, they're a chain, each link heavier, crueler, a racist vendetta to crush her spirit. She emails IA again, attaching the texts, the footage, her words ablaid. "This is terrorism. Act now." Her hope from dawn feels like a cruel joke. The system's wheels too slow against Grayson's wrath. The night stretches, the condo's silence a mockery as she sits, staring at the boarded window. Her office burns in her mind, the slurs searing into her memory, a brand she can't erase. She's faced threats before, but this is personal, a violation that cuts deeper than Carver's cuffs. Her fists clench, nails biting her palms, the pain a tether to her resolve. She won't run, won't break, but the weight of Grayson's reach presses down, a shadow she can't shake. Has Kiara's fight just begun, or is she already losing ground? Comment: Number 1, if you think she deserves to bury Grayson's. Crew for this and hit like and subscribe to see her strike back. What happens when a woman like Kiara refuses to bow? Can she turn this fire into fuel, or will Grayson's next blow be the one that breaks her? Imagine the flames, still crackling, the slurs still dripping. What's his endgame? Let's find out together in the next part. Thunder rumbles over Atlanta. The federal courthouse a grey monolith against a storm-darkened sky. Rain lashes the windows, streaking the glass in wild patterns, as Kiara Winston steps into the marble lobby, her grey suit crisp despite the chaos of the past 24 hours. Her wrists bear faint red marks from Carver's cuffs, her eyes shadowed from a sleepless night spent sifting through ashes of her torched office. The security footage of the arson loops in her mind, Grayson's name a venomous thread tying it all together. She grips her briefcase, her heels clicking a determined rhythm across the polished floor, her posture unyielding despite the weight pressing down. The courtroom looms ahead, its oak doors carved with solemn patterns, a faint hum of anticipation seeping through the cracks. She pushes them open, the air inside thick with the scent of old wood and tension, the gallery half full with onlookers, reporters scribbling notes, activists clutching signs, and a handful of cops in civilian clothes, their glares sharp as blades. Kiara strides to the plaintiff's table, her legal team flanking her, their faces taut with resolve. She's suing Carver for wrongful arrest, her complaint a spear aimed at his badge, and she's loaded it with every ounce of her skill. Judge. Evelyn Brooks takes the bench, her silver-streaked bun glinting under the recessed lights, her stern gaze sweeping the room like a searchlight. She's a rock in this storm, her reputation for fairness, a lifeline Kiara's banking on. Carver sits at the defendant's table, his broad frame hunched, his buzzed head bowed but his eyes flickering with defiance. His lawyer, a wiry man with a cheap suit and a nervous tic, shuffles papers, his defense a flimsy house of cards Kiara plans to topple. The bailiff calls the room to order, and the hearing begins, the storm outside a low growl underscoring every word. Kiara rises, her voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade through silk. Your Honor, Officer Brett Carver arrested me without cause, fabricated charges, and assaulted me on a public highway. I have the evidence to prove it. She presents the body cam footage, unedited and raw, retrieved from internal affairs, after her relentless demands. The screen flickers to life, showing Carver yanking her from her SUV, his sneer audible as he mutters slurs under his breath, his hands brutal as he cuffs her. The room shifts, gasps rippling through the gallery, the truth a slap to Carver's lies. Carver's lawyer stammers, "The officer acted within protocol, Your Honor. She resisted." Kiara counters with precision, her years as a prosecutor shining through. "The footage shows no resistance. I complied fully. His actions were unprovoked, driven by bias." She cites statutes, case law, her words a battering ram that leaves the lawyer floundering. Judge Brooks watches, her steel eyes narrowing as she scribbles notes, her silence a weight pressing Carver deeper into his seat. The evidence piles up. Kiara's ID, the falsified report, the viral videos edits traced to precinct servers. The ruling comes swift, Brooks's gavel a thunderclap, matching the storm outside. "Officer Carver, this court finds you liable for wrongful arrest and excessive force. Your conduct is a disgrace to your badge. Termination is ordered, effective immediately." Cheers erupt from Kiara's allies in the gallery, a wave of triumph washing over her. Carver's face crumples, his fists clenching, but he says nothing. his lawyer slumping beside him. Kiara exhales, her chest loosening for the first time in days, the victory a solid brick she can stand on. She gathers her briefcase, nodding to her team, their smiles a flicker of light in the gloom. The courtroom empties. The storms roar louder as she steps into the hall, her heels echoing on marble. She's won Carver's career ash, his suspension now a permanent scar. She pulls her coat tight, the rain a curtain she's ready to face. Believing this might finally slow Grayson's machine. Her phone buzzes, a text from Naya. "You did it, proud of you." She smiles faintly, stepping toward the exit, the weight of the arson and threats lifting, if only for a moment. That illusion shatters as she pushes through the courthouse doors. A mob swarms the steps, 30 strong, their faces twisted with rage, rain-soaked hoodies clinging to their frames. They clutch bottles, bricks, signs scrawled with hate. "Lock her up, prosecutor thug." The viral video's poison has festered, Grayson's propaganda igniting a firestorm she didn't see coming. She freezes, her breath catching, the crowd's roar drowning the thunder. "You think you're better than us?" A man bellows, his voice raw, his fist raised with a bottle glinting in the stormlight. Kiara's team shouts, trying to shield her, but the mob surges, a wave of fury breaking over them. A bottle flies, smashing at her feet, glass splintering across the wet stone. Another hits her shoulder, pain flaring hot and sharp, her coat tearing as she stumbles back. Slurs rain. Down, vicious and unrelenting. "Go back to the gutter. Black trash." She ducks, her heart pounding, her mind racing for an exit. The crowd presses closer, their hands grabbing, pulling, a woman's nails raking her arm. She twists free, her heels slipping on the slick steps, her team shoving back but overwhelmed. Police sirens wail in the distance, but the officers nearby, posted at the courthouse curb, stand idle, their smirks visible through the rain. One leans against his cruiser, arms crossed, his eyes cold as he watches the chaos unfold. Kiara's stomach twists, the betrayal a knife in her gut. She's a federal prosecutor, and they're letting this happen. Grayson's influence, a shadow. Over there in action. She breaks free, sprinting down the side of the building, her breath ragged, her suit soaked as she ducks into an alley. The mob's shouts fade, the rain a shield as she leans against a brick wall, bruised but alive. Her phone buzzes again, a news alert this time. Officer Carver reinstated after court ruling overturned. She stares at the screen, rain dripping. From her hair, her victory unraveling in real time. Grayson's pulled strings, his reach deeper than she feared, a call to some backroom ally flipping Brooks's order like it's nothing. Her shoulder throbs, blood seeping through her torn sleeve. The mob's hate a physical mark she can't shake. She wipes her face, her hands trembling, the alley's shadows closing in. She calls her team, voice hoarse as she confirms they're safe, her mind already shifting gears. The footage, the ruling, the arson, she's got enough to bury Carver twice over, but Grayson's a hydra, each head uglier than the last. She limps to her SUV, parked blocks away, the rain a relentless drumbeat against her skin. She slides inside, locking the doors, her breath fogging the glass as she stares at the city beyond. The wind felt real, a gavel's echo she could trust, but it's dust now, blown away by a mob Grayson summoned and cops he owns. Her fists clench, nails digging. Into her palms, the pain grounding her fury. She's bruised, soaked, her office ashes, but she's not done. Grayson thinks he's broken her, thinks the mob's chaos will silence her, but he's wrong. She starts the engine, the hum a promise, her mind a steel trap locking onto her next move. The courthouse steps fade in her rear view, the mob a memory she'll turn into a weapon. This isn't over. It's a spark, and she'll fan it into a blaze they can't outrun. The rain pounds harder. Atlanta's streets a blur as she drives, her shoulder aching, her resolve hardening. Carver's back, Grayson's winning, but she's still standing, still fighting. The mob was a warning, a taste of the war she stumbled into, and she knows it's only the beginning. She grips the wheel, her eyes fierce, the city a battlefield she's ready to claim. Grayson's turned her win into a trap, but she'll spring it back on him one way or another. Midnight cloaks a quiet Atlanta suburb, the air thick with the scent of wet grass and pine. streetlights casting pale pools over manicured lawns. Nia Winston's modest two-story home sits at the end of a cul-de-sac, its white siding glowing, faintly under the moon, a sanctuary far from the city's chaos. Inside, Nia, a 38-year-old nurse with Kiara's sharp eyes and a softer smile, pads barefoot across the kitchen, her scrubs swapped for a worn robe. She pours a glass of water. The faucets hum a soothing rhythm after a 12-hour shift at Grady Memorial. Upstairs, her 16-year-old son Jamal sprawls across his bed, headphones blasting rap, his phone glowing with a video game paused mid-battle. The peace shatters at 12:17 a.m. Tires screech outside, a harsh grind against the asphalt, and Nia freezes, her glass halfway to her lips. She peers through the blinds, her breath catching as three figures emerge from a black pickup, their faces shadowed under hoods. They move fast, silent, splitting off toward her driveway. A metallic scrape echoes, then a hiss, and she spots the glint of a knife slashing her sedan's tires, rubber splitting with a sickly pop. Her heart lurches, her hand fumbling for her phone as red spray paint streaks across her garage door. Traitor, in jagged, dripping letters. Jamal bounds downstairs, his headphones dangling, his voice tight with alarm. "Mom, what's that noise?" He joins her at the window, his lanky frame tensing as the vandals finish their work. One snapping a photo before they peel out, taillights vanishing into the night. Nia's fingers tremble as she dials Kiara, the line ringing twice before her. Sister's voice cuts through, hoarse from the courthouse mob. "Nia, what's wrong?" Nia stammers. "They slashed my tires, painted traitor on the house." "It's about you, isn't it?" Kiara's silence is a gut punch, her breath audible as she processes the blow. "I'm coming over. Lock the doors." Kiara's SUV roars into the suburb 30 minutes later, rain-slick streets reflecting her headlights as she pulls into Nia's drive. She steps out, her grey suit damp from the storm, her shoulder still aching from the mob's bottle. Nia meets her at the door, Jamal hovering behind, his phone clutched tight. The garage door's message glows under the porch light. A racist. Scar tying this to Grayson's war. Kiara's jaw tightens, her eyes tracing the slashed tires, her mind locking onto Carver's crew. "They're hitting you to get to me," she says, her voice low, fury simmering beneath it. Jamal lifts his phone, his voice steady despite the shake in his hands. "I got it on video, caught them spraying the paint." Kiara's eyes snap, to him a spark igniting. "Show me." The footage is shaky but clear. Three figures, one in a precinct jacket, the paint cans hiss audible over their muffled laughs. She forwards it to Internal Affairs, her email, a blade. More evidence of retaliation. Act now. Nia grips her arm, fear cracking her calm. "Kiara, this is too much. What if they come back?" Kiara squeezes her hand, her resolve steel. "They won't win. I'll end this." By morning, the video's online, posted by Jamal. On Twitter with a caption, "Cops targeting my family for my aunt's fight." It spreads fast. Retweets climbing into the thousands, outrage bubbling in the comments. Kiara pushes IA harder, her call with Agent Torres a tense volley. "You've got the arson, the mob, now this. Suspend Grayson too," she demands, her voice cutting through his stammered assurances. Hours later, IA caves, Grayson's temporary suspension hitting the news. Captain Victor Grayson sidelined pending review. Kiara exhales, standing in Nia's kitchen, the weight lifting slightly. She thinks she's gained ground. The vandals' faces a noose tightening around Grayson's neck. That hope crumbles at 11:42 p.m. Sirens erupt, a sudden wail shattering the suburb's quiet red and blue lights flooding Nia's street. Kiara's at the house crashing on the couch after a day of calls, when the front door explodes inward, wood splintering under a battering ram. SWAT storms in, black-clad figures with rifles raised. Their shouts a deafening roar. "Hands up, down on the floor!" Nia screams, dropping her glass, water pooling on the tile as she's shoved against the wall. Jamal bolts from the stairs, his phone tumbling, and a hulking officer tackles him, knees slamming into his back. Kiara leaps up, her voice raw. "I'm a federal prosecutor. This is my family. Stop!" Her words drown in the chaos, a gloved hand pinning her to the couch, her bruised shoulder screaming as she's restrained. Jamal struggles, his cries muffled. As cuffs snap around his wrists, the officer's boot grinding into his spine. "Armed suspect," the team leader bellows. A lie Kiara clocks instantly. Nia sobs, her robe torn, her pleas ignored as they ransack the house, overturning furniture, smashing framed photos. Kiara's eyes lock onto the leader's badge. Precinct insignia, Grayson's turf. The raid ends as fast as it began, SWAT retreating with no explanation, leaving devastation in their wake. Jamal's arm hangs limp, a bone snapped in the tackle, his face pale with shock as Nia cradles him, tears streaming. Kiara staggers to her feet, her suit rumpled, her fury a wildfire. She dials 911, demanding medics, her voice shaking but unyielding. "False call, Grayson's doing. Get an ambulance now." The dispatcher mutters compliance, but the damage is done. Jamal's whimpers a knife in her chest. Paramedics arrive, carting Jamal to the hospital, his arm in a sling, Nia clinging to his side. Kiara follows, her SUV trailing the ambulance. Rain pounding the windshield. X-rays confirm a fracture, the doctor's voice grim. "He'll heal, but it's bad." Kiara stands in the ER hall, her fists clenched, the suspension a hollow win against this brutality. She calls IA again, her tone lethal. "SWAT raided my sister's home on a fake tip. Grayson's behind it, you've got video, proof, do something." The agent's promises ring empty, her hope shredded by the night's violence. The hospital's fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting harsh shadows as Kiara paces, her mind a storm of strategy and rage. Grayson's suspension was a feint. His crew a machine that doesn't stop. The tires, the paint, now this, each blow worse, targeting her blood to break her spirit. She leans against the wall, her shoulder throbbing, Jamal's cries echoing in her ears. She's pushed them back, exposed their rot, but they've hit harder, a racist vendetta that spares no one. Nia emerges, her eyes red, her voice trembling. "He's stable, but Kiara, this has to stop." Kiara pulls her close, her resolve hardening. "It will, they'll pay." She steps outside, the rain a cold slap, her phone buzzing with news. "SWAT raid under investigation. It's not E." Enough, not after this. Grayson's turned her family into pawns, and she's done playing defense. She grips her keys, her eyes fierce, the hospital fading behind her. This isn't just her fight anymore, it's theirs, and she'll burn their world down to protect them. Did Grayson cross a line that can't be uncrossed? Comment. Number 1 if you think Kiara should take him down no matter the cost, and smash like and subscribe for the next explosive twist. Has he pushed her too far, or can she still outsmart him? Picture Jamal's broken arm, Nia's tears. What's the price of justice when it's personal? Will Kiara's next move flip the game, or plunge her deeper into Grayson's trap? Stay tuned to see how this war unfolds. Morning light filters through the blinds of Kiara Winston's downtown Atlanta office, a temporary space in the federal building after the arson gutted her original sanctum. The room is stark, functional, with a metal desk, a creaky chair, and stacks of salvaged files teetering on a folding table. Her grey suit hangs loose, wrinkled from nights spent chasing justice, her wrists still faintly marked by Carver's cuffs. She stands by the window, the city's skyline a jagged silhouette against a pale sky, her shoulder aching from the mob's bottle, her mind replaying Jamal's cries after the SWAT raid. The air smells of stale coffee and printer ink, a thin veneer of normalcy over the war she's fighting. Her team filters in, 5 lawyers in sharp suits, their faces etched with fatigue but lit with loyalty. They've weathered the video, the fire, the mob, standing by her as Grayson's crew tightens. The noose. She briefs them on the cartel case, her voice steady, her hands gesturing with precision as she lays out depositions and wiretaps. But her eyes dart, catching flickers of unease, a glance too long, a pen tapping too fast. Something's off, a splinter in her instincts she can't ignore. She finishes, dismissing them, but holds back Marcus Tate, her deputy, a 40-year-old with a smooth voice and a law degree from Emory. Marcus lingers, his tie loose, his dark, eyes avoiding hers as he shuffles papers. She's trusted him for years, his calm a counterweight to her fire, his work meticulous in every case they've cracked. "Marcus, stay a minute," she says, her tone neutral but edged, closing the door with a soft click. He stiffens, his fingers pausing mid-shuffle, a bead of sweat glinting on his brow despite the cool room. She leans against the desk, arms crossed, her gaze a scalpel peeling back his facade. "What's going on? You've been off since the raid." He clears his throat, his voice too smooth, too rehearsed. "Just tired, Kiara. It's been a lot." She steps closer, her heels silent on the carpet, her eyes locking onto his. "Tired doesn't explain the calls you've been dodging, the files you've misplaced. Tell me the truth." His jaw tightens, a flicker of panic breaking through. And she knows. She pulls her laptop, opening a log she's kept since the arson, timestamps, emails, access records. "You've been leaking to Grayson," she says, her voice low, lethal. The accusation a stone dropped into still water. Marcus flinches, his hands rising in defense, but the guilt's written in his sweat, his stammer. "Kiara, It's not what you think." She cuts him off, slamming the laptop shut, the sound sharp in the quiet. "Don't lie to me. I traced the video edits to your login. The cartel case details Grayson's crew knew before we did. How much did he pay you?" Her words are a whip, cracking through his excuses, and he crumbles, his shoulders slumping, his face ashen. "They threatened my family, Kiara. I had no choice." She stares, fury boiling under her skin, betrayal a bitter taste in her mouth. "No choice. You sold me out. Jamal's arm is broken because of you." Her voice trembles, not with weakness but rage, her fists clenching as she fights the urge to lunge. Marcus drops his gaze, his hands shaking, his excuses dissolving into silence. She steps back, her mind racing, calculating. "Resign, now, or I report you to the DOJ myself." He nods, defeated, scribbling a resignation on a notepad, his signature shaky as he slides it across the desk. She snatches it, her eyes never leaving him as he grabs his coat and stumbles out, the door thudding shut behind him. She exhales, the room spinning for a moment, then steadies herself, locking his access codes, securing her files. The mole's gone, her team cleansed, and news breaks hours later. DOJ scrutinizes Carver and Grayson after leaks. Her phone buzzes, an ally at Justice confirming, "We've got their financials, bribes traced to Grayson's accounts." She breathes easier, the air lighter, believing she's turned the tide, her badge a shield reforged. That relief shatters. At 3:15 p.m., an email pings from her supervisor, the subject line stark, "Suspension notice." She opens it, her heart sinking as she reads, "Pending review of evidence tampering allegations in the cartel case. Your badge is suspended effective immediately." Her breath catches, the words a punch to her gut, the room tilting as she scrolls. Attached files show forged documents, wiretap logs, witness statements, altered to look like she planted them, her signature faked in bold strokes. She slams the desk, papers scattering, her mind racing to Grayson's shadow. She calls her supervisor, her voice tight. "This is a setup. Grayson's framing me." The response is cold, bureaucratic. "We have to investigate. Stay off premises." She hangs up, pacing, her heels grinding into the carpet, fury and dread warring in her chest. The leak stopped with Marcus, but this is deeper, a trap Grayson's laid with surgical precision. She pulls the originals from her safe untainted, but the damage is done. Her career teetering on a lie she can't disprove yet. Her phone buzzes again, a text from Nia. "Saw the news. You okay?" She replies, "I'll fix this." But her fingers tremble, the condo's boarded window flashing in her mind. Jamal's sling a fresh wound. She grabs her laptop, cross-checking the fakes, spotting sloppy edits, dates off, fonts mismatched. It's Grayson's crew, she's sure, but proving it takes time she doesn't have. Her office door locks behind her, the building a fortress she's barred from, her badge a ghost in her pocket. She drives home, the Atlanta skyline blurring past, rain streaking the windshield like tears she won't shed. The suspension feels like a guillotine, her power stripped, Grayson's smirk a spectre in her rearview. She parks, stepping into the condo, the silence oppressive, the boarded window a scar. She pours a glass of wine, the liquid trembling in her hand, her mind a storm of strategy. Marcus was a pawn, but Grayson's the king, turning her own system against her with a lie so bold it's brilliant. She sits, staring at the glass, the wine untouched, her reflection a warrior, battered but unbowed. The courtroom win, the moles. Exit, the DOJ's scrutiny. They were steps forward, crushed by this blow. Her badge was her sword, and now it's gone. Her name muddied by a racist frame-up that exploits every doubt about a black woman in power. She clenches her fists, nails, biting her palms, the pain a tether to her resolve. Grayson thinks he's won, thinks she'll fold, but he's wrong. The city hums beyond her walls, a distant pulse she's fought for years to protect. She opens her laptop, pulling the originals again, her mind shifting into the lawyer she is. Precise, relentless. The suspension's a shackle, but she'll break it, turn Grayson's trap into his tomb. She emails her DOJ ally, attaching the fakes, her words a vow. This is Grayson, help me prove it. The night deepens, the condo a bunker, her fury a flame she'll stoke until it burns them all. She stands, pacing, her heels off, bare feet silent on the hardwood. The cartel case, her family, her career. Grayson's hit them all, each blow sharper. Crueler, a vendetta she'll end. She stops, staring at the skyline, her reflection fierce in the glass. The suspension's a lie, but the truth is her weapon, and she'll wield it until they choke on it. This isn't over. It's a pivot, a chance to strike back harder, and she's ready to swing. Atlanta's streets pulse with midday chaos, horns blaring and exhaust fumes rising as the sun beats down on cracked pavement. Kiara Winston sits in her condo, the air thick with humidity seeping through the boarded window, her silk blouse clinging to her skin. Her badge lies suspended, a ghost in her drawer, the frame-up from Grayson's forged documents a noose tightening around her neck. The city beyond her walls churns with venom, Grayson's allies flooding newsrooms with the tampering story. There lies a tidal wave crashing over her life. She grips her phone, the screen glowing with headlines. Chief Prosecutor suspended amid corruption claims. Kiara Winston, fraud or victim. Her name's mud now, splattered across every channel, every feed. She paces the hardwood, her bare feet silent, her mind a storm of fury and strategy. The TV blares in the corner, a local anchor with a slick smile dissecting her downfall. Evidence tampering in a high-profile cartel case has rocked the DOJ, with Winston at the center. Sources say she's unfit to lead. The words sting, a racist barb cloaked in neutral tones exploiting every doubt about a black woman in power. Her phone buzzes non-stop, texts from Nia piling up. They're trashing you on air. How do we fight this? Kiara's jaw tightens, her fingers trembling as she mutes the TV, the silence a brief shield against the onslaught. Outside, the condo's street fills with noise, a growing rumble that pulls her to the window. She peers through, the blinds her breath catching as protesters swarm, their numbers swelling to 50, then 60. Signs bob above their heads. Justice for cops. Winston's a liar. Some clutch megaphones, their shouts raw and jagged. Lock her up. She framed an innocent man. The crowd's a mix, some locals, others strangers with hard eyes, their anger stoked by Grayson's propaganda. She spots a man in a precinct cap, his smirk a dead giveaway. Paid muscle, Grayson's puppet stirring the pot. Her heart pounds, the mob's roar a physical force shaking the glass. She texts her security company, her words clipped. Protesters. At my door. Send help. The reply's slow, a promise of 10 minutes. But the crowd presses closer, a woman hurling a rock that thuds against the boarded window, splintering the wood. Kiara steps back, her chest tight, the condo a cage under siege. She calls her DOJ ally, Rachel Evans, her voice steady despite the chaos. They're burying me, Rachel. I need a counter. Rachel's tone is grim, but firm. I've got Grayson's bribery records, leaking them now. Minutes tick by, the mob's chants growing louder, a bottle smashing against her door with a sickening crack. Her phone pings, a news alert breaking through, DOJ leak, Captain Grayson linked to bribes, corruption. Rachel's done it. The records hitting Twitter like a bomb, screenshots of bank transfers tying Grayson to dirty cash. The tide shifts slightly, hashtags flipping from Narwhal and locker up to charge Grayson corrupt. some protesters pausing, phones in hand as the leak spreads. Kiara exhales, her fists unclenching, a flicker of control returning. She thinks she's regaining ground, the mob's fury splitting under the weight of truth. That hope snaps at 4:27 p.m. She heads to her SUV parked in the condo's garage, needing air, needing to see Nia and Jamal. The protesters have thinned, security shooing them off, but the street feels alive, electric with unrest. She drives, the city a blur, her mind on the leak, believing it's a lifeline. She pulls into a grocery lot blocks away, stepping out to grab water, her guard down for the first time in days. The air's heavy, the lot quiet, until a truck screeches. In gravel, spitting under its tires, 6 men spilling out, their faces masked, guns glinting in the fading light. Kiara freezes, her keys slipping from her hand, clattering on the asphalt. Grayson sends his regards. One growls, his voice muffled but dripping with hate, his pistol raised. She bolts, her heels skidding as she ducks behind a dumpster, her heart slamming against her ribs. The men fan out, a vigilante squad, their shouts roar, "You can't hide, traitor!" A shot rings out, pinging off metal inches from her head, the sound a whip crack in the still air. She crouches, her breath shallow, her mind racing for an out. They close in, boots crunching gravel, a second shot shattering a car window nearby. She spots a gap, a narrow alley between stores, and sprints, her legs burning, her suit tearing as she scrapes past brick. The men curse, their steps pounding behind her, a third shot grazing her arm, blood seeping through her sleeve. She dives behind a stack of crates, her phone clutched tight, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. Armed men, parking lot on Peachtree. "Help!" The dispatcher's voice is slow, skeptical, and she hangs up knowing they won't come, Grayson's shadow over every badge. She waits, the men's shouts fading as they circle, missing her hiding spot. Her arm throbs, the graze a hot line of pain, but she's alive, her mind a steel trap locking onto survival. Sirens wail faintly, spooking the vigilantes, their truck roaring off as blue lights flicker in the distance. She staggers out, blood dripping onto the gravel, her SUV a lifeline she stumbles toward. She slides inside, locking the doors, her breath fogging the glass as she grips the wheel, the leak's small win drowned by this ambush. She drives home, the city a hostile blur, her arm wrapped in a scarf, the condo's silence a mockery as she steps inside. Grayson's turned the public against her, paid a mob, now sent killers, each blow sharper, crueler, a racist crusade to erase her. She pours a glass of water, her hand shaking, the liquid spilling as she slumps onto the couch. The leak dented, his armor, but this is his counter, a death threat she can't outrun yet. She grabs her laptop, pulling the bribery records, her mind shifting into the lawyer she is, precise, relentless. The suspension, the mob, now this. Grayson's desperate, but he's winning. Her life a battlefield she's barely holding. She emails Rachel, her words a vow. "They tried to kill me. We need more." The night deepens, the condo a bunker, her fury a flame she'll stoke until it burns them down. She's still standing, but the cost is piling up, blood on her sleeve a mark she won't forget. Can Kiara turn this nightmare into her weapon? Comment: Number 1, if you think she's stronger than Grayson's hate, and hit like and subscribe to see her fight back. Has he pushed her to a breaking point, or is this the spark she needs? Picture the gunshots, the blood. What's the limit of her resilience? Will her next strike shatter his game, or pull her deeper into his crosshairs? Let's unravel this chaos together in the next part. Night cloaks Atlanta in a shroud of shadows, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked asphalt and diesel, as Kiara Winston crouches behind a stack of crates in a dimly lit alley. Her arm throbs, the graze from Grayson's vigilantes a hot line, of pain seeping through her torn sleeve, blood crusting on the fabric of her grey suit. Her breath comes in shallow bursts, fogging the cool air, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The parking lot ambush echoes in her ears, gunshots ringing like a death knell she's barely outrun. She clutches her phone, the 911 caller dud, but her other hand grips a hidden recorder, a palm-sized device tucked in her pocket. its red light blinking silently. She'd activated it mid-chase, a lawyer's instinct kicking in as the vigilantes closed in. Now crouched in the alley's damp gloom, she replays the audio, her thumb trembling as she adjusts the volume. Grayson's voice crackles through, muffled but unmistakable. "Finish her tonight. No loose ends." Her stomach twists, the order, a death sentence captured in his gravelly growl. A thread she'll pull until his empire unravels. She stops the recording, her mind a steel trap locking onto her next move, the city's hum a distant roar beyond the brick walls. She staggers to her SUV parked blocks away, her heels scraping gravel, her arm wrapped in a scarf now soaked red. The engine roars to life, the headlights cutting through the night as she speeds toward the DOJ's Atlanta field office, a squat building on the city's edge. Rain pelts the windshield, wipers slashing a frantic beat, her focus razor sharp, despite the pain. She parks limping through the lot, her suit a ruin as she pushes through glass doors into a sterile lobby. The night guard nods, recognizing her despite the blood, and she heads straight for Rachel Evans' office, her ally's desk a lifeline in this storm. Rachel looks up, her sharp features paling as Kiara stumbles in, blood dripping onto the tile. "Jesus, Kiara, what happened?" Kiara slaps the recorder on the desk, her voice hoarse but firm. "Grayson's hit squad. They tried to kill me. He's on tape." Rachel's eyes widen, her hand snatching the device as she plugs it into her laptop, the audio spilling out. Grayson's order, the vigilantes' grunts, the gunfire's crack. "This is gold," Rachel breathes, her fingers flying as she copies it, emailing it to the DOJ's top brass with a subject line. "Urgent. Grayson caught ordering murder." Kiara sinks into a chair, her arm pulsing, her breath ragged as Rachel calls in a medic. The guard patches her up, gauze tight around the graze, the sting grounding her fury. Hours blur, the office buzzing as the DOJ mobilizes, the tape a grenade lobbed into Grayson's camp. By dawn, news breaks. Captain Victor Grayson arrested in assassination plot. Kiara watches the feed on Rachel's screen, Grayson in cuffs. His hulking frame slumped as feds haul him from his precinct. Officer Brett Carver turns witness, his plea deal a crack in Grayson's armor, fear of prison outweighing loyalty. Her suspension lifts, the tampering lie crumbling under the tape's weight, her badge restored with a terse email. Reinstated. Return immediately. She exhales, standing in Rachel's office, the city waking beyond the windows, a fragile triumph settling in her chest. Grayson's locked up, Carver's flipped, the vigilantes' faces traced to precinct ties. She thinks. She's won. The recorder her ace, the war tilting her way at last. She thanks Rachel, her voice steady, and heads to her SUV, the morning light a promise she clings to. That hope explodes at 9:48 a.m. She's parked outside her condo, engine idling, when a deafening blast rips through the lot, her SUV lurching as flames erupt from its hood. The force slams her against the seat, glass shattering inward, shards slicing her cheek as heat scorches her lungs. She kicks the door open, tumbling onto the asphalt, her suit smoldering, her legs screaming with a fresh fracture. Smoke chokes. The air. The car a fireball, bystanders screaming as they scatter. She crawls, her arm bleeding anew, her vision blurring but alive, barely. Sirens wail, paramedics rushing in, their hands pulling her from the wreckage as flames lick the sky. She's on a stretcher, oxygen mask pressed to her face, burns blistering her arms, her leg twisted at an angle that turns her stomach. A cop hands her a note fished from the debris, the paper singed but legible. This isn't over. Grayson's scrawl, a taunt from a jail cell she can't fathom, his reach a phantom striking through bars. Her head spins, the medic's voice fading as she clings to consciousness, the blast a sledgehammer to her victory. She's rushed to Grady Memorial, the ER a blur of white coats and beeping machines, her burns bandaged, her leg braced, a hairline. Fracture confirmed by X-rays. Nia bursts in, her nurse's scrubs wrinkled, her eyes red as she grips Kiara's hand, Jamal hobbling behind on crutches, his own arm still slung. "You're alive," Nia whispers, her voice breaking. And Kiara nods, her throat raw, her mind a storm of questions. Grayson's arrested, yet this bomb screams his name. A counter-strike she didn't see coming, crueler than the vigilante's guns. She lies in the hospital bed, monitors humming, her body a map of scars, the graze, the burns, the fracture. Her. Phone buzzes. Rachel's text, Stark. Carver says Grayson planned this pre-arrest. He's got a network. Kiara's jaw tightens, the note's words searing into her brain, a promise of more blood she can't dodge yet. She's alive, her badge back, Grayson cuffed, but the war's not won. His shadow stretching beyond steel bars, a racist vendetta that spares no blow. Nia sits beside her, Jamal silent, their fear a weight she feels in her bones. She squeezes Nia's hand, her voice a rasp. I'll end this. For us. The medic adjusts her IV, painkillers dulling the edges, but her mind stays sharp, plotting through the haze. The recorder was her strike, Grayson's arrest her win, but this bomb's a checkmate she didn't anticipate. His crew a hydra with heads she can't count. She stares at the ceiling. The tiles a blank slate, her fury a flame she'll stoke until it consumes them. The hospital's hum surrounds her, a sterile cocoon she'll break from soon. She's survived again, her body battered but her will iron. Grayson thinks he's broken her, thinks the bomb's his trump card, but he's wrong. She'll heal, she'll rise, the note a gauntlet she'll throw back in his face. Her eyes close, exhaustion pulling her under, but her mind races. A lawyer's mind, a fighter's mind, locking onto the next play. Daylight filters through the blinds. Atlanta waking beyond the walls, oblivious to the war in her room. She's got the tape, Carver's testimony, a badge restored, but Grayson's reach is a spectre she can't shake. His escape from justice a taunt she'll chase. Her leg throbs, her burns itch, but she's still here, still standing in her way. The bomb was a message, a racist roar she'll silence, and she'll wield every scrap of power she's got to do it. She shifts, wincing, Nia's hand warm in hers, Jamal's eyes fierce despite his sling. The suspension's lift feels hollow, the arrest a mirage. Grayson's note a promise she'll turn into his noose. She's not running, not breaking, the hospital bed a pit stop, not a grave. The city hums, a battlefield she'll reclaim, and she's ready to fight, one strike at a time. Morning light spills through the sterile blinds of Kiara Winston's hospital room at Grady Memorial, casting thin stripes across the linoleum floor. She sits propped against pillows, her leg braced in a stiff cast, burns bandaged up her arms, her face a map of cuts from the car bomb's glass. The air smells of antiseptic and faint coffee, the hum of monitors a steady pulse beside her. Her grey suit's gone, replaced by a hospital gown, but her eyes burn with the same fire, her badge reinstated, a weight she feels even now. Nia sits. Nearby her nurse's scrubs crisp, her hand resting on Jamal's shoulder as he leans on crutches, his arm still slung from the SWAT raid. Kiara grips a tablet, the DOJ's summons glowing on the screen. Testimony required. Grayson hearing. Today. Her leg throbs, her burns itch, but she nods to Nia, her voice a rasp. I'm going, they need me. Nia protests. You're barely standing, but Kiara's jaw sets, her resolve iron. The medic clears her reluctantly, handing her crutches, and she hobbles out, Nia and Jamal trailing, their fear a silent weight she carries. The drive to DOJ headquarters is a blur. Atlanta's streets slick with last night's rain, her SUV replaced by a rental, the bomb's wreckage a ghost in her rear view. The headquarters looms, a concrete fortress on the city's edge, its halls buzzing with feds in sharp suits and clipped voices. Kiara limps in, crutches clicking, her gown swapped for a borrowed blazer and slacks, her team rallying around her like a shield. The hearing room's packed, air thick with tension, the walls lined with agents, reporters, and Grayson's glaring loyalists. He sits in cuffs, his hulking frame slumped, his steel-grey hair catching the light, his cold eyes locking onto her with a venom that chills her spine. Carver's beside him, head bowed, his plea deal a crack she'll widen. She takes the stand, her crutches propped nearby, her voice steady despite the pain clawing her leg. Captain Victor Grayson ordered my murder. I have the tape. She plays it, the recorder's audio spilling out. His growl, finish her tonight. The vigilante's grunts, The gunfires crack. The room shifts, gasps rippling. Grayson's face paling as the truth lands. She details the stop, the arson, the SWAT raid, the bomb, her words a battering ram, each blow cracking his empire. He's run this precinct like a cartel, protecting racists like Carver, targeting me for my skin and my title. Carver testifies next, his voice trembling, spilling names, dates, bribes, his plea a lifeline he's clung to. Grayson ran it all. I followed orders. The DOJ prosecutor nods, her questions sharp, peeling back layers of rot. Dozens of officers tied to payoffs, assaults, cover-ups, all under Grayson's thumb. Kiara's evidence stacks high. The tape, the bomb's note, Jamal's footage, Tower Grayson can't topple. The hearing ends, feds swarming, indictments raining down, 30 officers charged, the precinct a house of cards collapsing under its own weight. She limps out, her team cheering, reporters shouting questions she ignores. Her badge feels solid again. Her name cleared, the news hailing her. Hero prosecutor exposes corruption. She meets Nia and Jamal outside, their smiles fragile but real, her chest swelling with a victory she's bled for. The hospital looms. As she returns, her body screaming, but her mind's alight, believing she's struck the killing blow. Grayson's cuffed, his crew's crumbling, the system bending her way at last. She sinks into the bed, exhaustion pulling her under, hope a flicker she clings to. That triumph fades by noon the next day. Her phone buzzes, a text from Rachel. States slashing DOJ funds, Grayson's allies. She bolts upright, pain shooting through her leg, her tablet lighting with news. Georgia legislature cuts federal oversight budget, cites overreach. Her breath catches, the words a gut punch. Her case is stalling as funding dries up, wiretaps halted, witnesses unpaid. She calls Rachel, her voice tight. Who's behind this? Rachel's grim. State senators, Grayson's old golf buddies, they're choking us. Kiara's mind races, the victory unraveling. Grayson's smirk a spectre in her memory. She pulls hospital Wi-Fi, digging into legislative records, names surfacing. Senator Paul Hargrove, a silver-haired relic with precinct ties, his vote's a shield for Grayson's rot. Her chest tightens, the indictment's a hollow win against this counterattack. Her work crippled by a racist machine she can't touch yet. She texts her team, "Find Hargrove's dirt." Her fingers trembling. The hospitals hum a mockery of her fight. A whistleblower calls at dusk, his voice hushed, routed through Rachel. Grayson's running a shadow network from lockup. Orders through burners, loyalists everywhere. Kiara's blood runs cold, the bomb's note flashing in her mind. This isn't over. She records it, her crutches clattering as she shifts, the gown sticking to her burns. "Who's his contact?" she demands, but the line cuts, static a taunt she can't chase. She stares at the ceiling, the tiles blurring. Grayson's reach a hydra she's only scratched, his allies a wall she can't climb yet. Nia enters, her scrubs wrinkled, her eyes red. "You're pushing too hard," she says. But Kiara shakes, her head, her voice a rasp. "They're not done, I can't stop." Jamal hobbles in, his sling a reminder, his gaze fierce. "We're with you," he mutters, and she nods, their strength a tether to her resolve. The precinct's down, officers indicted, but Grayson's shadow looms, the funding cut a chokehold, the network a knife at her back. She's hailed a hero, but it's ash, the system buckling under its own weight. She grabs her tablet, pulling DOJ memos, her mind a steel trap locking onto Hargrove, the whistleblower's hint, Grayson's burners. The indictments were a spark, but this is a fire she can't control, each blow sharper, crueler. A racist vendetta that's bled into the State House. She emails Rachel, her words a vow, "Dig into Hargrove, he's Grayson's shield." The night deepens, the hospital a bunker. Her fury a flame she'll stoke until it burns them down. She lies back, her leg throbbing, her burns itching, the monitors a steady hum. The victory felt real, a tower she'd built. But it's crumbling. Grayson's allies striking from heights she can't reach. Her badge is back, her name cleared, but her case is stall, her allies targeted, the network a spectre she can't see. She clenches her fists, nails biting her palms, the pain a lifeline to her fight. Grayson's cuffed, but he's winning. His shadow a noose she'll snap one way or another. The city sleeps beyond her window, its lights flickering. A battlefield she's still claiming. She's got the tape, Carver's words, a precinct in ruins. But Hargrove's a wall, the network a web. Grayson's note a promise she'll turn into his grave. Her eyes close, exhaustion tugging, but her mind races. A lawyer's mind, a fighter's mind, plotting through the haze. The funding cuts a shackle, but she'll break it, turn Grayson's trap into his tomb. She shifts, wincing, Nia's hand warm nearby, Jamal's crutches a silent vow. The indictments were a win, but this is a war, and she's not done. The tool. Hospital bed's a pit stop, not a surrender. Her body battered, but her will iron. The city hums, a pulse she'll bend, and she's ready to strike, one blow at a time. Rain hammers a rural Georgia safe house, a weathered cabin tucked among pine trees, 50 miles from Atlanta's chaos. The night is black, the storms roar, drowning the crickets, water streaking the single-pane windows. Kiara Winston sits on a sagging couch, her leg braced in a cast, burns bandaged up her arms, her borrowed blazer stained with hospital antiseptic. The air smells of damp wood and mildew, a stark contrast to her condo's sleek lines, but it's shelter, a bunker to protect Nia and Jamal from Grayson's shadow. Her crutches lean against a rickety table, her tablet glowing with DOJ memos, her mind a steel trap plotting her next strike. Nia paces the cramped kitchen, her nurse's scrubs swapped for jeans, her sharp eyes darting to the windows, her hands wringing a dish towel. Jamal slumps in a chair, his sling tight around his fractured arm, his phone dark since the hospital, his 16-year-old frame coiled with restless fear. The safe house was Rachel's idea, a DOJ stash spot off the grid, its isolation a shield. After the bomb, the funding cuts, the networks whisper. Kiara's badge is back, her name cleared, but Grayson's reach is a spectre, his allies a noose she's dodging. "We're safe here," she says, her voice steady, a lie she half believes, her gaze on the storm beyond the glass. She pulls files from her briefcase, originals salvaged from the arson, her fingers tracing wiretap logs, Grayson's bribes, the tape that cuffed him. Nia stops pacing, her voice tight. "How long, Kiara? They've hit us everywhere." Kiara meets her eyes, her resolve iron. "Until I bury them." Hargrove's next. She's emailed Rachel, digging into the senator. The whistleblower's hint a thread she's pulling. Her mind a lawyer's blade cutting through the haze. Jamal shifts, his voice low. "They won't stop, Aunt Kiara. What's the plan?" She nods, a faint smile breaking through. "Expose them all, one piece at a time." The night deepens. The storm a relentless drumbeat. The cabin creaking under its weight. Kiara's plotting, her tablet alive with notes, when a thud jolts her, a heavy crash beyond the door. She grabs her crutches, hobbling to the window, her heart slamming against her ribs. Nia freezes, Jamal bolting upright, his sling swaying as he peers out. Headlights cut through the rain, a black van idling, its doors sliding open. 3 figures emerge, masked, their movements swift, a glint of steel in one's hand. Kiara's breath catches, Grayson's network a ghost striking again. "Get back," she shouts, shoving Nia toward the kitchen, her crutches clattering as she grabs her phone. The door bursts open, wood splintering, 2 men storming in, their boots pounding the floor. One lunges for Jamal, his arm snapping out, pinning the boy's good arm. A chokehold silencing his cry. Nia screams, clawing at the second, but he shoves her down, her head cracking against the table's edge. Kiara swings a crutch, connecting with the first's knee, a sickening crunch as he staggers. But the third grabs her, slamming her against the wall, her cast cracking, pain exploding up her leg. Jamal's dragged out, his sling tearing, his kicks useless against the man's bulk. "Let him go!" Kiara roars, her voice raw, but the third pins her, his breath hot against her ear. "Drop the case, or he's dead." The van's engine revs, Jamal's muffled shouts fading as they haul him through the rain, the door slamming shut. Nia staggers up, blood trickling from her temple, her sobs a knife in Kiara's gut. The men vanish, the van peeling out, gravel spitting, the storm swallowing their tracks. Kiara collapses, her legs screaming, her burns tearing open, blood seeping through bandages. Nia crawls to her, their hands clasping, the cabin a wreck of overturned chairs and shattered glass. She dials Rachel, her voice shaking but firm. "They took Jamal. Grayson's crew. Send help." Rachel's panic crackles through. "Feds are on it. Stay put." Kiara hangs up, her mind racing, the threat a sledgehammer to her resolve. She negotiates through a burner left behind, a gravelly voice demanding, "Falsify evidence, clear Grayson, or the kid's gone." She buys time, her lawyer's mind spinning, crafting a fake DOJ memo retracting the tape's validity, her fingers trembling as she emails it. Hours crawl, the storm raging, until headlights pierce the night again, feds swarming, Jamal stumbling. From their van, shaken but alive, his face bruised, his sling gone. Nia sobs, pulling him close, Kiara hobbling to them, her chest heaving with relief. She thinks she's outsmarted them, the feds tracing the burner, her family back, the memo, a bluff they'll unravel. That illusion shatters at dawn. Her tablet pings a news alert. Kiara Winston confesses to framing Grayson in shocking video. She taps it, her breath stopping as her face fills the screen, her voice clear, measured. "I fabricated evidence against Captain Grayson to advance my career. It was wrong." The words are hers, but she never spoke them. The footage seamless, her condo's backdrop a perfect match. Her stomach drops. The AI-generated lie a masterpiece. Grayson's network a hydra she can't kill. The safe house trembles as the storm peaks, thunder rolling, but the real chaos brews outside. Her phone floods, DOJ allies texting, "Is this real?" Nia stares, her voice breaking. "Kiara, what's this?" Kiara slams the tablet down, glass cracking, her fury a wildfire. "It's fake, Grayson's last card." The news spreads, hashtags exploding. Winston lied. Free Grayson. The public flipping, her hero status ash. She calls Rachel, her voice a rasp. "AI, they've got tech, shut it down." Rachel's grim. Too late. Riots starting. Kiara limps to the window, the pines swaying, her mind a storm of strategy and dread. Sirens wail in the distance. Atlanta's unrest spilling outward. The safe house a target as Grayson's lie ignites chaos. She pulls footage logs, her originals intact, but the mob doesn't care. Their shouts echoing through the trees. "Traitor! Liar!" Rocks thud against the cabin, glass shattering, Nia shielding Jamal, their fear a weight she can't lift. The feds guard the perimeter, rifles raised, but the crowd swells 100 strong. Their rage a racist roar she knows too well. She sits, her cast cracking further, her burns bleeding, the tablet a lifeline she clings to. The rescue was a win, Jamal's return a breath, but this video's a guillotine. Grayson's network striking from shadows she can't reach. Her badge teeters, her name poison. The riot's a fire she can't douse. She emails Rachel her words. "Vehicle forensic proof, now." The cabin shakes, the mob's fury a physical force, her family's sobs a chain around her heart. The night stretches, the storm a mirror to the chaos outside, the safe house a bunker under siege. She saved Jamal but lost the war. Grayson's AI a blade she didn't see, cutting deeper than the bomb. Her fists clench, nails biting her palms, the pain a tether to her resolve. He's turned her voice against her, a racist lie exploiting every doubt. But she's not broken. She stands, crutches wobbling, her eyes fierce, the mob a challenge she'll face. The pines loom, the rain a relentless drum, the city a battlefield she's still fighting. She's got the originals, the feds, a family to protect, but Grayson's network is a hydra. The riot's a noose she'll snap. Her leg screams, her burns weep, but she's alive, her mind a lawyer's blade cutting through the haze. The rescue's undone, the confession a trap, and she's at the edge, ready to leap or fall. Dawn breaks over rural Georgia, a pale glow seeping through the storm-battered pines surrounding Kiara Winston's safe house. Rain drips from the eaves, the cabin's splintered door swaying in the wind, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and shattered glass. Kiara stands inside, her leg braced in a cracked cast, burns weeping through bandages up her arms, her borrowed blazer torn from the mob's rocks. Her crutches lean against the wall. Her tablet clutched tight, its screen cracked but alive with the AI-generated confession that's turned Atlanta against her. Nia huddles with Jamal on the couch, his sling gone, his bruised face pale, their breaths shallow as the rioters' shouts echo beyond the trees. The mob swells, 100 voices roaring, "Traitor! Liar!" Their fury a racist tide stoked by Grayson's fake video. Feds guard the perimeter, rifles raised, their radios crackling with orders to hold the line. But the crowd presses, rocks thudding against the cabin's walls, a bottle smashing through a window, glass glittering on the floor. Kiara's chest tightens, her badge a hollow shield. The riot's a fire she can't douse. She limps to the table, her mind a steel trap, pulling forensic files from her DOJ cloud, originals untouched by Grayson's lie. "We're ending this. Now," she says, her voice a rasp. Nia's eyes widening, Jamal nodding despite his fear. She grabs her phone, dialing Rachel, her words sharp. "Set up a live feed, I'm debunking this." Rachel's voice crackles. "Feds are raiding Grayson's bunker, go live." Kiara nods, propping the phone against a lamp, its camera framing her battered face, the safe house's chaos a stark backdrop. She taps record, the feed streaming to DOJ channels, Twitter, every platform she can hit, her breath steadying as the red dot blinks. "This is Kiara Winston, Chief Federal Prosecutor. The confession you've seen is a lie, an AI fake by Victor Grayson to silence me." Her voice cuts through the storm. The mobs roar a distant growl as she holds up her tablet, forensic proof scrolling, audio waveforms mismatched, pixel artifacts glaring, timestamps off by hours. "Here's the real me, Liv, with evidence Grayson can't touch. He's targeted me, my family, my career, because I exposed his corruption." She plays the recorder's tape, his growl spilling out. "Finish her tonight." The gunfires crack a damning echo. The feed spikes, thousands watching, the mob pausing, phones lighting their faces as her truth spreads. She leans closer, her eyes fierce despite the pain clawing her leg. Grayson's precinct is down, his crew indicted, his bribes exposed. This video's his last gasp, a racist trick to bury a black woman who wouldn't break. Her words land, the crowd splintering, some shouting back, others turning, their rage redirecting. "Find him!" a man bellows, the mob shifting, hunting. Grayson's ghost as sirens wail closer, feds closing in. Kiara stops the feed, her chest heaving, the tablet slipping from her hands. Relief a fragile spark she clings to. Miles away, DOJ agents storm a secret bunker beneath an Atlanta warehouse, its steel door blasted open, dust choking the air. Grayson's inside mid-escape, his hulking frame hunched over a burner phone, a duffel stuffed with cash at his feet. A defecting ally, a wiry cop named Ellis, led them here, his tip a crack Grayson couldn't seal. Agents swarm, rifles raised, cuffing him as he snarls, "You'll pay for this!" His cold eyes glint, but the fight's gone, his network's threads snapping under Kiara's strike. The arrest hits live, news choppers buzzing overhead, Atlanta watching his fall. Kiara's safe house quiets, the mob dispersing, feds securing the perimeter, Nia's sobs softening as Jamal grips her hand. Rachel calls, her voice sharp. "He's down." Ellis flipped. "You did it." Kiara exhales, her legs screaming, her burns throbbing, but her chest swells, the AI lie shattered, Grayson's cuffs a victory she's bled for. She thinks it's over, the war won, her family safe, her badge a sword reforged. She limps outside, the rain slowing, dawn's light a promise she believes, her crutches sinking into mud as she breathes free air. That triumph explodes at 8:13 a.m. She's back in Atlanta, driving to her temporary office, the rental SUV humming through downtown's bustle. Her team's waiting, the cartel case revived, funding trickling back as Hargrove's allies scramble. She parks, stepping out, her crutches clicking pavement, when a blast rips through the federal building, a fireball erupting from her office's floor. The shockwave slams her back, asphalt biting her palms, her cast shattering as she hits the ground. Glass rains, screams pierce the air, smoke choking the sky as two colleagues, young lawyers she mentored, vanish in the flames. She crawls, her leg a twisted wreck, blood seeping from reopened burns, her ears ringing as feds rush in. Debris buries her crutches, her phone lost, her breath ragged as paramedics haul her from the wreckage. Grayson's trap, a cop mutters, pulling a timer shard from the rubble, his precinct insignia a taunt. She's stretchered out, her vision blurring, the medic's voice fading. Stay with us. Her office is ash, her team torn, the bomb a final blow from a man she thought she'd buried, his notes promise fulfilled beyond bars. She's rushed to Grady again, the ER a chaos of white coats and blood, her leg reset, burns rebandaged, her body a map of scars. Nia's there, her scrub stained, her hands shaking as she grips Kiara's, Jamal hobbling in, his face ashen. "You're alive," Nia whispers, but Kiara's eyes are distant, the blast replaying. Her colleague's screams a weight she can't shed. Rachel storms in, her suit dusty, her voice grim. Grayson triggered it pre-arrest, remote setup, but there's more. She hands Kiara a file, singed but intact, pulled from the bunker. Senator Paul Hargrove, Grayson's mentor, funded the network. Kiara's breath stops, the name a sledgehammer. Hargrove's silver hair and smug grin flashing in her mind. The file spills secrets, payoffs, orders, a shadow empire stretching to the State House, Hargrove's signature on every thread. Her jaw tightens. The Barmer pawns move Hargrove the king she didn't see. A racist titan targeting her from heights she can't climb yet. He's the real fight, she rasps, her voice raw, Nia's grip tightening. Jamal's eyes fierce despite his bruises. She lies back, monitors beeping, her body a wreck, but her mind alive, a lawyer's blade cutting through the haze. Grayson's down, his precinct ash, his network cracked, but Hargrove's a Hydra's head. The bomb a warning she'll turn into a weapon. She vows reform, her words a whisper to Nia. I'll change this system for them. The colleagues she lost, their faces haunt her, a debt she'll pay with every breath she's got left. But Hargrove looms, a new foe, his shadow a noose she'll snap, her fate uncertain as the war shifts. The hospital hums, Atlanta waking beyond the walls, its skyline scarred by smoke. She's won. Grayson's cuffs a victory, but the bomb's a gut punch. Hargrove's rise a twist she didn't predict. Her badge teeters, her team mourns the reformer mountain she'll climb, crutch or not. She clenches her fists, nails biting her palms, the pain a tether to her resolve. Hargrove thinks she's broken, thinks the bomb's his checkmate, but he's wrong. She shifts, wincing, Nia's hand warm, Jamal's presence a silent vow. The broadcast was her strike, Grayson's fall her win, but this bomb's a pivot, Hargrove. To shadow she'll chase. The city pulses, a battlefield she'll reclaim, her mind racing, a fighter's mind plotting through the haze. The reform's a promise, the colleagues a fuel, Hargrove a target she'll bury, one strike at a time. Daylight strengthens, the hospital a bunker she'll leave, her body battered but her will iron. She's got the file, the feds, a family to protect, but Hargrove's a wall, his racism a fortress she'll crack. Her leg throbs, her burns weep, but she's alive, her eyes fierce, the war unending. The bomb was a blow, but she'll rise. Hargrove's shadow a challenge she'll meet. The story a thread left dangling. Her fight a flame that won't die. Kiara Winston's journey in racist cop drags wrong black woman to court. 5 minutes later, learns. She's the USAO chief federal prosecutor, reveals stark truths about resilience, systemic racism, and the cost of justice. Her battle against Officer Brett Carver and Captain Victor Grayson exposes how power can twist institutions into weapons of oppression, targeting those who dare to rise above prejudice. Kiara's strength lies not just in her title, but in her refusal to break, even as Grayson's racist vendetta escalates from a wrongful arrest to a car bomb. Her story teaches us that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the will to fight through it, especially when the odds stack higher with every blow. The systemic collapse she triggers shows that one voice can topple corruption, yet the emergence of Senator Paul Hargrove as a new foe underscores a bitter lesson. Racism is a hydra, its heads regrowing in darker forms. Kiara's Pyrrhic victories, winning in court, exposing Grayson, saving Jamal, come at a steep price with lives lost and her body scarred, reminding us that justice often demands sacrifice. Her resolve to reform the system, even from a hospital bed, highlights the power of persistence over despair, urging us to confront injustice head-on, no matter the personal toll. What can we take from this? Stand firm, question authority, and protect those caught in the crossfire. Because silence fuels the machine Kiara dismantles. Her fight asks us, how far would you go for what's right? Comment number 1 if you'd battle like Kiara, and hit like and subscribe to join this journey. Share this story if you believe in justice worth fighting for. Thanks for riding this roller coaster with us. Here's to strength, truth, and a world where no one's voice is silenced by hate.